Welcome back. Episode 32 of the Full Program Golf Podcast. This week, we're going to do a quick mailbag episode. We've got a load of questions over the last couple of months, so I'm going to take the time and answer some of them. Let's get into it. All right, so mailbag edition. As I said in the intro, we've kind of got questions over the last couple of months and weeks, and I thought I would pull a couple of these out and just run through them and give my take on each. Before I do, quick shout out to Matthew Fitzpatrick. Another win at Hilton Head, which I have to say, unbelievable looking course. Haven't got out there myself and desperate to do so. Won there twice, which I think there was a comment that he made to his dad many years ago saying the course didn't suit him, whereas now I think he's quite the fan. I think he even said it was his favourite course. But a birdie on the first extra hole against Scheffler. Scheffler, the season of second place is kind of what it's looking like at the moment, but I'm sure there are big things for him still this season, and we'll get onto that a little later. But you look at it now. Fitzpatrick for a 5'10", $155 gentleman from Sheffield. He's building a decent little career, obviously with the US Open, but as his kind of main win. But you look at the Ryder Cup performances have been very, very strong, and then 2 wins this season on the PGA Tour. You go a bit further back; he's a US Am champion as well. He's slowly building one of the better, certainly English, but European records of the last couple of decades. So shout out Fitzpatrick. It was also really good to see him come through against, once again, a very biased crowd. These USA chants are happening a bit too often for my liking, but obviously he fell short at the Players against Cam Young, but he succeeded against Scheffler at Hilton Head. So very, very good win. Great to see him do well. As I said, with Josh's Sheffield ties, we are always a fan of Fitzpatrick doing well. So let's get into the mailbag. So question 1. If you could build the perfect 4-day golf trip anywhere in the world for under £1,500 per person, what does the itinerary look like? And where do you refuse to compromise? I mean, I don't want to compromise anywhere. It's probably the starting point. And I don't think you necessarily have to for 1,500 quid. So first take, I think there's really 3 levels to trips. There is your bucket list, tick every box you need to, go and do it once, go and do it properly kind of trip, which your budget is probably higher than 1,500 for in most locations, and you're probably going to dedicate a week to go and do it. So that's kind of tier 1. I would then say a 4-day £1,500 trip is probably in tier 2. Like, you can go and do a very solid golf trip for 1,500 quid, as long as you're keeping it relatively close to home. And I think that's the point I want to make with that. If it's a 4-day trip, travel has to be considered, and I think you need to keep it close to home. So I will answer that as if we're coming from the UK when we actually get to it. And then, but just to kind of conclude the tiers, I think there's a third tier, which would be your long weekends, 2-3 days, and you're probably looking under £1,000. So anyway, to answer the question, 4-day £1,500, I think you're in that tier 2. And as I said, I think it's really important to keep it close to home. And so if we're talking, as I would, from being based in the UK, I'm looking UK, Ireland, or Europe. For me, at that price, I'd probably go to East Lothian. Because the reality of it is you haven't got that long. You don't want to spend your time travelling all around. And so with East Lothian, you can get yourself into Edinburgh by train, super easy trains from London. You can fly in. Even if you're coming across from the East Coast of America, like, you probably just about get away with a 4-day trip, maybe 5-day trip. Again, lots of direct flights into Edinburgh. And then everything you need is just out there and it's easy. And so what I'd look to do, 4 days, you want to play 4 times, I would pick your big boy course. Now, I think at 1,500 quid, you're probably going to rule out going to Muirfield. But if you picked either North Berwick or Gullenwum, as your centerpiece to build the trip around. And then just to throw names out there, you've got then Dunbar, you've got Archerfield, you have got, and then Kilspindie, the Glen, Craigielaw are probably your cheaper ones. So you've almost like, you can divide the courses up out there. I'm sure I'm missing many off the top of my head right now, but you go one big boy course, Gullen or North Berwick, then go for a second or third round at your Dunbars, your Archerfields. And then I think just to pad it out, you go for your best value rounds, which you shouldn't turn your nose up at. They're really, really good, fun links tracks. But Kilspindie and the Glen are both around £100-ish green fee. And so you can kind of slot that in there and that will keep you on budget. For accommodation, the Leddy, super easy, decent pricing, get yourself in some twin rooms, and I'm sure you'll be able to keep to budget there. I think the Archerfield Lodge is also really, really good shout. They're not that much more expensive than the Leddy. And so either of those, as long as you're happy to twin up and then 4 rounds of golf, it should keep you around the £1,500 mark. And I think if you're wanting something easy but very good quality, I don't think you can go wrong with that trip. Question number 2. Which destination is overhyped right now in golf travel, and which underrated spot should replace it? What is overhyped right now? The only place that immediately springs to mind, and I wouldn't go as far as saying it's overhyped, but I would say it's overrated. And that is the stuff in Bulgaria. We went down and played Thracian Cliffs, Black Sea Rama, Lighthouse. And Thracian Cliffs, you look at the photos and I can understand why you'd get excited about it. Like, it looks absolutely epic. But it's not as good a golf course as it is view. And so, yes, there are some iconic holes, but it's brutally difficult. And we went out with a group of decent golfers, and it's just a case of, like, I could compare it to something like Pinnacle Point down in South Africa. Pinnacle Point down in South Africa is spectacular, and you've got a chance to get your ball around that golf course. Like, there is enough room to miss. Whereas with Thracian Cliffs, it felt like fairway, a slither of painfully deep shrub or gorse or whatever it was, and then just like gone off a cliff. And so you just have to, and no wonder McDowell won when the match play was there in 2013, I think it was, because he's short and he drives it straight, and that is just what that course needed. So I'm glad I went and played it. I'm glad I went and ticked it off. We actually played it twice on the trip, and I kind of didn't need the second time because I just knew what we were in for, and it was just an absolute nightmare. So a couple of car crashes from virtually everyone around that golf course. And then the reality is Black Sea Rama and Lighthouse are munis at best. Like, they're nothing to report home about at all, unfortunately. And so I do think, whilst it's not in the echelons of a Spain and a Portugal, like, I do think there is a bit of chatter around Bulgaria, and I just don't think it's warranted. And then just to kind of conclude on that, I think the off course isn't there at all. And so if you're a younger group and you're looking for stuff to happen, you're out in these resorts in the middle of nowhere, and there's really not much going on at all. Thracian Cliffs, whilst you can make an argument for the standard of its golf course, it's then got no clubhouse once you finish. And so you have this experience and you want to sit down and have a drink and talk it over, and you're not really given a facilities to do that in. So not the biggest fan of the Bulgaria setup. Certainly not something I'm rushing back to do. Underrated spot. God, it's hard to give something that's comparable to that. Where would I say an underrated spot is? To be honest, I know this is not really like for like, but I think there are parts of England that are overlooked all of the time for golf getaways. And so I would suggest that going down to the southwest of England and playing either St Enodoc and the surrounding courses there, or Saunton down in Devon, really, really, really good golf courses that you can actually play at a very reasonable rate. And I just think that's something that not necessarily on a lot of people's radar, and is a really, really good trip. So there you go. All right, question 3. You've got one round of golf at a course to impress a seriously good golfer. Are you picking a marquee name or a hidden gem, and why? So I think if you're looking to impress someone, you've obviously got to take them somewhere that you've never been before. Now, I think as long as you're going to somewhere they've never been before, you're going to get that wow factor, regardless if it's a marquee name or a hidden gem. And so I think it's more impressive to take them to a marquee name, I think, to be pretty straightforward. So they're marquee names for a reason, and that's normally because they're very good golf courses or good facilities or whatever it might be. So, yeah, I get the question, but I think, pretty obvious answer is you just take them to the biggest marquee name that they've not been to, and that will probably impress them the most. All right, question 4. What separates a good golf trip from an unforgettable one, and what's the biggest mistake people make when planning? So I think the mistake bit is easy. I think the biggest mistake people make when planning golf trips at the moment, and we see it all the time, is they just don't consider or can't fathom how far in advance you need to book things to get trips to play out exactly how you want them to. And so I bang this drum, and to our better customers that we're in conversation with a lot, if they've got an idea and they want to go tick off one of these top tier bucket list golf trips, we need to be thinking about it at least 12 months in advance, ideally before that, and then we can be finger on the pulse of when tee times are released and stuff like that. And so I'll give you an example. We've got guys that are going to do Scotland, and they wanted to do Muirfield, North Berwick, Gullen, and Kingsbarns. Now, we booked that on the day that the Muirfield tee times came out, which is best part of 14 months in advance. And if you just want to do it right, that is what you got to do. And the amount of people that will come to us in late December and go, I want to go to Scotland in the middle of the summer, what can you do? And you're like, we can do it, but you're going to miss this, or you're not going to be able to quite work that. And then this tee time's going to be at 2:30, and they're like, can I play at 11? It's just like, unfortunately not like that. They are long gone. The midsummer tee times up in Scotland and over in Ireland and places like that, the mid-morning, midsummer tee times are like gold dust. So I think that's the main thing I'd call out here is if you want to do something in particular, look, if you're flexible, then that's fine. You can roll the dice and just see what comes out, and I'm sure you'll have a great time anyway. But if you very specifically want to do something, 1 year in advance is the way to go about it. What separates a good trip from an unforgettable one? In my opinion, it'd be what's built in around it. So you got meat and potatoes of any trip, which is where are you playing, where are you staying, and I suppose how are you getting around. They're all important, and they need to be covered off. But I think most people, if they know what they're doing, or if you go to tour op, like you're obviously going to cover those, no problem at all. I think the part that makes stuff unforgettable is when you book them that restaurant on the correct day in the evening, or you tell them play golf at this time because then you'll be finished, because then you can go and have a late lunch here. Day off from golf. What's the best things to go and do? And so I can think of various locations where you build in, and it becomes a holiday rather than just a golf trip. And you see the place, you get the culture, you get the feel of the whole environment. But I do think sometimes, especially if it's a super, super heavy trip golf-wise, you can be very much like hotel course, hotel course, hotel course. Whereas I think there are multiple destinations out there that just have so much to do away from just like resort life or whatever it might be. And I think when you blend that all together and someone comes back from that country and they're like, I played golf, I've seen the best courses, but I've also seen the country, as I said, experienced the culture, met the people, and kind of got a feel for it that way. I think when you blend that all together, I think you come back and you're like, that's unforgettable. So yeah, I just think it's full package and just packing it all in. All right. Okay, this is kind of a follow up on that. This is a good next question. If you had to pick one country as the best overall golf destination right now, where is it and what gives it the edge? So probably quite boring for people that have listened to a lot of our content. I am obviously the biggest fan of South Africa, and I think it is the ultimate golf destination. Much to what I just said on the question before, I think you can build an unforgettable experience. It's not just a good golf trip. And why do I think that? Multiple elements. So I'm speaking as someone who's in the Northern Hemisphere. So you can be US, you can be Europe, wherever. It is absolutely miserable from middle of December through till the end of February. Like, those months are no fun whatsoever. If you're in the UK, if you're in Northeast states, where it just like no one's having a good time. And I feel like I'm preaching to the converted there. What is better than getting some proper winter sun? Now, you could go to Australia. Australia is a real pig's ear to get to. South Africa, if you're in Europe, is an overnight flight, normally direct, depending on where you are, straight down to Cape Town, if not into Joburg, quick connector. And it's Africa, and it's the middle of their summer. And that heat just hits you, and it's not humid heat like you would get in Asia. It's just a nice, dry, crisp heat. So you get winter sun, number one. Number two, the currency is so weak. I've banged this drum forever and ever and ever. The South African rand is weak as you like. And so as a result, if you are a euro earner, if you're a dollar earner, if you're a pound earner, you're going to go down there. And my general rule to everyone is you've got to consider things to be about a third of the price if you want to gauge of like, is this a good deal or not? A beer in London is £6. A beer in South Africa is £2. That's just how it works. So regardless of your spending power, you're going to go down there with some or an elevated version of what you currently have. The golf is very, very good. I wouldn't say it's on golf alone a top destination, but the golf is very good, and I think it is highly underrated. And I will say this again and again and again and again. Fancourt is one of the most underrated places for golf in the world. It is such a good setup. They now have 3.5 golf courses. So they have their Links, which is their private members club. Unbelievable track, hosted the President's Cup in 2003. I think it should be in the world top 100. It's my favorite golf course in the world. So that's their marquee track. Then they've got Montague, Otaniqua, both brilliant golf courses. Montague is actually one of the best resort style golf courses I've ever played. Like, it is a seriously good test. And then Otaniqua was really fun, and as the third 18, very, very, very respectable. And then they've just built another 9-hole, the Links Experience, which looks very good, and it would be the perfect arrival 9 holes in the afternoon kind of place. Hotel is proper 5-star, multiple restaurants on site. You build your trip around Fancourt, and I can't begin to stress that enough. We've just had guys come back from there in April, beginning of April, and they were just like, "What even is this place?" And I was like, "I know." I've been trying to tell everyone, Fancourt is where it is at. So the golf's good. But then what you've got is you've just got so much good stuff to do off the golf course, and you can just blend it all together so seamlessly. They do hospitality really well there. They're very kind people, very engaging people. And so you go see the penguins down at Boulders Beach. You hire a Cobra and drive around Cape Point. You go quad biking up on Atlantis Dunes. You climb Table Mountain. You climb Lion's Head. You go drinking wine up in Stellenbosch and Franschhoek. You've got the wine tram in Franschhoek, which takes you around for a full day. Amazing boutique hotels if you like that higher end accommodation vibe. Then shark duck cage diving if you want to go do it. then the food is sensational. The food scene in South Africa is unbelievable. And as I said, the currency's weak, so you can go and eat at all these fantastic restaurants. It's the best steak restaurants I've ever been to in my life down in South Africa. And you can get whatever you want, and it's just never going to be in the hundreds of pounds range, which you would expect if you went to a posh steak joint in London. So all round, you just get so much. There's beaches, there's mountains, there's great golf, there's great food. The value's good. Off course activities are all there, and so you can build yourself an unbelievable, I would say minimum 7-day, easily could be 2-week trip. And I haven't even mentioned going and doing safari and places like that. And so I just think value for money, time of year, all the rest of it, best overall golf destination is South Africa. And I'm going to take a lot of moving off that one. All right, question 6. Who are your picks for the remaining majors this year? And is there a dark horse you'd actually put money behind? So, Rory's won the Masters. I don't necessarily have like a burning pick for the PGA. Someone who I think has been playing very well and is probably due to re-enter the major sphere again is Collin Morikawa. He's been playing some really good golf. Now, I know he's had a bad back, and he was struggling to finish out at the Masters, even though he did finish very well. If he can get healthy, I think the PGA is the kind of thing that he would do well in. Then US Open, Shinnecock. Excuse me. US Open at Shinnecock, I'm actually going on the Friday, which I cannot wait for. Like, am I ever going to set foot on Shinnecock any other way? I mean, I hope so, but potentially unlikely. So to actually be able to go there and walk the grounds. And do you know what? I'm going by myself, and I feel really comfortable admitting that to the listeners. And I cannot wait. I cannot wait to not have to worry about every time I've gone to the Opens in the UK before. I've always gone with someone else, and I've always felt like I've had to like drag them around a little bit. Like, I like to be on the move. I'm quite chaotic. I just see opportunities and I want to take a dive at them. And I've always been slightly conscious of the fact I'm dragging. Whereas US Open by myself is going to be my first day in America. So I'm going to be jet lagged as you like. So I'm hoping I'm going to wake up at 4 a.m. I'm going to be the first person in that park and ride. I'm going to be the first person through the rope. I'm going to park myself on the first tee box and watch the first people on the Friday round tee off. And then I'm going to spend all day darting around a top 5 golf course in the world. I'm going to go myself into the merch tent, and I really like what the US Open do, because they obviously incorporate the club logo into a US Open logo, which why the Open don't do that, I do not know. Like, I think it's genuinely one of the greatest misses in merchandise history. So I'm gonna tuck into some US Open Shinnecock kit, and then those who watch the YouTube version of this will see I've got the posters, and know I've got the posters behind me. These are all the official major posters done by Lee Wabranski, and I'm going to go track down Lee, and I'm going to buy his Shinnecock poster. Going to have a chat with him. Going to get him to sign it, and then hopefully in a couple of months' time it'll appear on the wall behind me. So yeah, bit of a segue there, but really, really looking forward to going to Shinnecock, as you can hear. Who do I think is going to win at Shinnecock? I think Scotty Scheffler's going to win, and I think he's going to do the Grand Slam. And if he doesn't, I do genuinely believe it's a matter of time before Scotty Scheffler wins the US Open. I think of all of the majors, I would suggest that that's the one I think he probably would have the best chance in if he'd never won anything. So I think he's going to do it, which is conceptually quite interesting, because McIlroy had this 17-year wait or whatever it was, and it just built and built and built and built and built. And part of me is like, it would be good if something similar built for Scotty, and then he eventually did it, because if he just does it, everyone's going to be like, okay, yeah, right, on to the next. But like, if Scotty does it literally a year after McIlroy and significantly quicker than McIlroy, it might just dampen the flames of the McIlroy chat that we've just had to endure for best part of 13 months now, which I know Josh will be delighted with. And so, do I want Scotty to win it at Shinnecock? I'm not 100% sure. Part of me, yes, because we just get over the McIlroy chat then. Part of me, no, because it would be good for at least a little bit of suspense to build. But ultimately, I think he's just going to do it at some point. And I think Shinnecock would be a good one. And then the Open at Birkdale, everyone's been saying Tommy. Obviously, it'd be unbelievable if Tommy Fleetwood won the Open at Birkdale. However, I think the winner of the Open Championship in 2026 is going to be Justin Rose. And I tell you why. And I tell you why it's a great story. Is he going to become a Masters champion? That's obviously the one everyone's hoping that he gets done. And, Masters champion, US Open champion, 2-time major winner, all these close calls. I get it. But let us not forget, what was the Open Championship where a teenage Justin Rose finished 4th, I think it was? Where was that? That was at Royal Birkdale. Wouldn't it be a beautiful story if Justin Rose, in the twilight of his career, wins his second major, wins his home major to become a 2-time major champion? His game's there, and that's what I think is going to happen. I think Tommy Fleetwood's going to have just a bit too much going on that week. Obviously, it'd be a great story, but is Tommy Fleetwood's breakthrough really going to be in Shane Lowry style at a home Open? I don't think so. All right. Question 8. Which course would you add to the Open rota? And which course would you remove from the Open rota, and what would you replace it with? So the rota question's always a bit bigger than just like, oh, what course is the worst and what great course could you add? There's obviously a huge infrastructure question that surrounds these tournaments. And so, I don't know, Prestwick couldn't host an Open anymore, even though it's got the historic ties back to the first one ever. The obvious answer to me on a surface level looking in would be Hoylake, get rid of it. I just don't think the course is really in the same conversation as a lot of the other Open rota courses. And then I would put Turnberry back on it, because the Ailsa is, without a doubt, one of the most sensational golf courses in the world. And I played it in real feel, -3, raining sideways, just god-awful weather. And I still, through the letterbox between my snood and my woolly hat, managed to appreciate the fact that that may be the greatest set of 18 holes I've ever had the chance to try and maneuver a white ball around. The Tom Watson attempt to win in 09, iconic. The Jewel in the Sun, iconic. Stenson winning against Mickelson, iconic. We got to get the Open back to Turnberry. This chat about going to Portmarnock and places like that, what are we even talking about? I suppose if it wasn't to go to Turnberry, I am very pro getting golf tournaments to the great golf courses of the world. No one needs to see great tournaments I don't know, the PGA Championship goes to TPC, who cares? Let's get in the world top 100. So I don't know if Royal County Down could do a Open. I know it has done DP World Tour events. So I think that would be very cool if RCD had also hosted the Open, much like Portrush has done now a couple of times. Second part to that question: What are the most iconic courses on the Open and US Open rotas outside of Pebble Beach and St Andrews? Yeah, so they're obviously the two standout. I think they're the ones that everyone wants to win. I think St Andrews probably is elevated slightly further ahead of the pack than Pebble. would be my guess. I think St Andrews has the Open every 5 years. I'm not sure if Pebble is on a rotation that quickly. I might be wrong though. Not sure. What are the next most iconic courses? It certainly would be Turnberry in my mind if it was open road stuff. Birkdale, God, I don't know. Really difficult. Really, really difficult. So what have you got? Muirfield, St Andrews, Carnoustie. Turnberry's not on it. Royal St George's. I don't know. I'm going to sit on the fence. I'm going to say, let's get Turnberry back on the rota, and then that will be the second most iconic. Then next most iconic from Pebble. Right, I'm going to actually have to US Open rota courses golf. Future sites. Let's have a look. Okay, so the next load are Shinnecock, Pebble, Wingfoot, Pinehurst, Merion, Riviera. Oh god, there's a Oakmont, Oakland Hills. Ooh, blimey. It's a good question. Because I don't think there's a particularly good answer. I would say after Pebble, to me, Pinehurst feels like the most iconic. But if someone came to me and was just like, I think Riv's had the PGA Championship. I don't like it when it's a PGA and US Open. I think they should be two separate lists. That's my opinion. Merion, very cool with the baskets. Probably not the most iconic. Wingfoot, I do like Wingfoot. Shinnecock. Yeah, do you know what? I'm just having a full fence sit with that one. I don't know, but there are lots of iconic courses, which is good, I suppose. And I'm looking forward to going to Shinnecock this year. Maybe after that, I'd be able to answer it because maybe I'll fall in love. Who knows? All right, last couple of questions. Question 9. What does the perfect lads golf trip look like when the off course is just as important as the golf? Okay. So, I think it's important to be near big cities or certainly be coastal, have a good time places. So, 3 places immediately spring to mind. Dublin, if you want a links golf situation, we did it a couple of years ago. I think, East Lothian, you're outside Edinburgh. West Scotland stuff, you're nowhere near anything. West Island stuff, you're nowhere near anything. Surrey, London stuff, I feel like a bit expensive for lads' trips. Go to Dublin, stay in Dublin. I think your golf options are plenty good enough, and you've got good variation. So obviously you've got Portmarnock, which is right up there in terms of price and standard. But the island, Britas Bay, once it reopens, the old European club, really, really good golf course. I think Royal Dublin, fun track. You've got other courses knocking about in there. You could go out to K Club as well. Look, there's lots of different options. I'm sure I'm forgetting to mention a few right now, but they're all dotted around the city of Dublin. And if you haven't been to Dublin before, Dublin is a great time. Like a really, really buzzy, vibing city, not huge. And so if you place yourself in the centre of Dublin in the right spot, you can get yourself lost in bars, restaurants, pubs, many pints of Guinness. Like Dublin is a riot of a time, and has the reputation, rightly so, as far as I'm concerned. And then, as I said, you've got golf courses to the south, to the west, to the north, and then down the actual east coast in the city as well. So I think Dublin is definitely the best lads links golf trip if you're wanting to get stuck in the evening. Other than that, it would be the obvious: go down to southern Spain, park yourself in Port Banús, enjoy all the sights and sounds down there, and then the golf. A plethora of golfing options down there. Everything from Valderrama, which is top 100 and are going to cost you an arm and a leg. You might have to sell your kidney along the way. Finca, but then just loads of mid-tier stuff as well. So you can really make that as expensive or as cheap as you want to. And then one location that I think's light may have dimmed over the last couple of years, with various people complaining about it getting quite very expensive and the quality of the golf maybe not being as good as it used to be, and the rounds taking a very long time. But the Algarve still is a really, really straightforward, good fun golf trip where, again, plenty of options, guaranteed sun, and then you go get stuck into Maria's, BJ's, wherever, and you'll have a great trip. So I think those three are the ones that immediately spring to mind. Just depends what you want. If it's links golf, go over to Dublin. If not, get yourself down to Portugal or Spain. Okay, question 10. If a client said, money no object, but I want something different, what's the most creative golf trip you'd design? So I think two pools of thought, and there's one that I'm not that well versed on, but I know some groups that are money no object, and they went and played golf they have played golf in places like Iceland, where you can go and play golf in volcanoes and all this, that, and the other. I did hear feedback that maybe the golf wasn't quite on merit comparatively to other money no object places that you might go and play. But if you were looking for adventure, Lofton Links in Norway or going to Iceland, something like that, I just thought would be quite good fun. But really, where my brain immediately goes when money's no object is I would go to Ireland and I would just do it properly. Now, the biggest problem with Ireland comparatively to Scotland is the courses are quite spread out, especially up the Wild Atlantic Way. Then going up into Northern Ireland, I suppose, like you've got Portrush and RCD, just completely other ends of the country. So if you went in there and money was no object and you got yourself a helicopter for the week and you were able to dart about between Royal County Down, Portrush, Ballybunion, Lahinch, Old Head, et al., add on whichever other ones take your fancy, then I can't. That just must be unbelievable. Rolling out of, let's say, the Trump Doombeg Hotel onto the helipad and just getting whizzed away to play elite level links course X. And so, yeah, I think that would make it a bit of a different element, and that would be kind of just like all time a bucket list, whatever golf trip. So yeah, I think that's what I'd do. All right, final one. What is currently top of your bucket list and why? So a place that has really crept up on me in the last year, I would say. Those that know me, I'm down to South Africa every winter, and so that's my Southern Hemisphere play, and I've obviously harped on about how good I think that is. But as a result, I feel, especially from the UK, you find a lot of people either do go down to somewhere like South Africa, or they go probably the more popular route, which is to Australia. I just didn't have Australia that high on my to-do list. I was always like, there's just too many countries closer to me that I'd prefer to just tick off first because they're easier to get to. However, as I've gone further and further down the rabbit hole, and I've had just a collection of really close friends go down there the last couple of years, I'm absolutely desperate to get out on that Melbourne sandbelt. I think I follow a guy called Gary Lisbon on socials, who's a photographer who's a member of Royal Melbourne, I believe, and has photographed all of the iconic courses down there. And if you're really into your golf travel and you fancy wasting an hour at work, go on his website and have a flick through the photos of the different golf courses down there. They just all look, I love that sand aesthetic type of golf course. And I think, to name a few, Royal Melbourne, both East and West, they obviously do the composite for their professional events. Kingston Heath, Metropolitan, Victoria, then New South Wales down the coast. They just look out of this world good, and I've had multiple people tell me that that's exactly what they are. And then what's got me interested kind of beyond that is Sydney, I think, would be your cool, the better hangout city from my understanding. And so you'd probably bolt going to Sydney on there as well. Now, Royal Sydney have spent a phenomenal amount of money on their golf course, and to the point where at the moment members are only allowed to play once a week as they try and let it bed in and stuff like that. And so whilst Melbourne has historically had all of the best golf and Sydney has been dwarfed by it in a golfing sense, Gary Lisbon went and took some photos of Royal Sydney, and let me tell you, Royal Sydney looks like a pretty serious track now as well. And then to add on top of all of that, you've got some of the all-time golf logos across these clubs. Royal Melbourne, unbelievable. Kingston Heath, unbelievable. Royal Sydney, unbelievable. So I think top of my bucket list at the minute is definitely going down to Australia, playing the big boys in the Melbourne Sandbelt, getting across to Sydney and hanging out there and playing a little bit of golf there as well, and just leaving in my wake a sea of destruction in pro shops all across Australia. So yeah, getting myself excited talking about it. All right, that's it. Mailbag done. Hope you've enjoyed it. If any questions, if you're listening, got any questions, please do fire us into a DM. We'll look to do this every so often, however long it takes to collect a decent batch of questions together. We are Full Program Golf as ever on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok, and we will see you in the next one.